I was wondering what kind of themes you like to invest in. What's your sweet spot with startups?
Yeah, as a general matter, our theme is people. It's not about technologies or markets. It's we invest in great entrepreneurs who have come to an idea in the context of their history. That
Right.
sometimes that's an industry in which they've worked, sometimes it's a problem that they needed solving, and they come to us and say, "Here's how we're thinking about this problem. We think it's big, and we think the way we're solving it is interesting."
Right.
And when we think to ourselves, "Oh, that's true. It is a big problem, and it's a big, interesting opportunity." And we think that the entrepreneurs are going about it in a smart way. Then we might invest.
Right.
But we're not a firm that wakes up on the 1st of January and says, "Okay, we're focused on big data. We're going after bioinformatics. We need a mobile ad thingahoozy."
Yes, yeah.
That's just that. Our approach is we describe ourselves as systematically opportunistic. We
Right.
work very hard to see the most interesting opportunities that people can describe, and we hope that we have the good sense when we see them to say, "Yes, that's it."
And so would it be seed stage or round A or
We
B?
I mean, it's one of those tricky things. On the one hand, we've invested $500,000 in a company, and
Right.
we've invested $130 million in a company.
Okay.
And so it's an incredible
Range,
range. We tend to invest in early stage ventures.
Right.
I've invested in a number of three people with a great idea kinds of companies,
Oh,
putting in
okay.
$2 or $4 million. I've invested in lots of Series A investments where the team is a dozen people. They're working on something interesting and they need the next $6 or $8 million. I think that early is fun and interesting, and
Yes.
and the world's your oyster.
Yes.
It's also risky and challenging, and
Yeah.
and then we have a later stage fund where we invest in opportunities where the teams are doing great things and they need more money to leverage the skills they already have or the relationships they already have to acquire companies. And so we've had lots of interesting opportunities there where we say, "Oh, we'll invest 20 or $25 million and you can buy this other company, or we can spin you out of some other place," and we find that exciting as well.
I just love your office, and you're obviously a really creative guy. And do you like to get involved with the startups, and sort of what's your boundary around that?
I wrote this blog post. I have a blog called Venture
Yes.
Blog, and
Yes, I have it. Yeah.
I wrote this blog post once. I think it was entitled "Every VC Thinks He's a Marketing Genius." Marketing is one of those things you can opine on infinitely, and if you
Right.
think you know what I think you should do. My view of venture capital is that it is not our job to steer companies.
Okay.
We're not in charge. We're not. If you're running the company, then something has gone very, very wrong.
Yes.
On the other hand, I think there are lots of things that we can be helpful with. And sometimes that's recruiting, and sometimes that's thinking about the broader opportunity. Sometimes that's relationships, and so I'm happy to do anything that is helpful for my CEOs, for my companies. And
Right.
sometimes that's, "Hey, David, can we meet every week and get together and talk about how the company's doing, whatever." I've had that and very happy to do it.
Great.
Sometimes it's, "I really need you to convince this great engineer to join the company."
Yes.
And sometimes it's, we're thinking about this particular product or market or whatever. What do you think about it? So I'm thrilled to help any way that you think is useful.
Yes.
And I think that I am that. I'm the support structure
Right.
for a great team of people who are going to build a big business.
Right, fabulous. So I wondered if you've invested in any female-founded companies, and what you think about that whole area of startups.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think that it's not an area of startups that women approach startups the same way as men.
Interesting.
They're founding companies across a range of technologies and a range of opportunities.
Yes, yeah.
And so I do think that there is an interesting challenge that the venture capital market has, right?
Okay.
I think I'm not someone who is going to look at you and say, "This is a pure meritocracy, and if women are disproportionately underinvested, that's their fault," right?
Right.
Because the things that that lead to investment
Yes.
are really amorphous, right?
Yes.
It's about introductions and
Yes.
relationships. It's about sales and marketing and convincing people and engagement and connections. And so
Yes.
to the degree that this is about making those deep connections,
Yes.
there's clearly plenty of folks up and down SandHill Road where that's a harder connection to make with people who are less like them.
Right.
And SandHill Road is full of men, right? I mean, it's a lot of men. And so I think it's an interesting challenge. And I think it's a challenge that the venture community would be well served to be cognizant of and to try and make progress.
Okay.
And so, which isn't to say funding female entrepreneurs who are engaged in businesses you're not interested in.
Yes.
It's more about understanding what it is, how you judge people and businesses, and not creating double standards,
Right.
and not making having expectations that that make it harder for one group of people, whether it's women or African Americans or
Right.
Hispanics or whoever. Don't create hurdles that get in the way of this is a great business. Let's go build it.
Okay.
Now that's that said, I have backed female entrepreneurs. I
Right.
look forward to continuing doing it. And we recently funded in the second half of last year, 2 of our CEOs are women. We're
Oh,
excited
great.
about that.
Great.
So I don't think that this is a crisis at August Capital. I just think that people have to be realistic, and they have to come in eyes wide open and look for the best athletes who are going to do the most interesting things,
Okay.
whatever their background is.
So that's sort of your advice to the venture community, I gather. So would you have any tips for women who are wanting to raise venture or angel investment? Is there anything that you could say that would encourage them? Because obviously that's the basis of my interviews.
Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, it's always the same, which is relationships drive activity in Silicon Valley. Right?
Okay.
Everything is relationship driven. And so my advice is very much the same advice I give any starting entrepreneur, which is that you need to engage in a meaningful way with the broader ecosystem, and the way you come to the venture community is through friends of the venture community. Because if ultimately someone I trust says you should meet with this entrepreneur, I'm not filtering it by are you female or you male, I'm filtering it by who made this introduction.
Yes, yeah.
And so to the degree that there's any differentiation between men and women engaging in that behavior, then I think that be bold, create relationships, and get to know people,
Yes.
and live and die by the things that you're doing, right? I do think that Silicon Valley is a meritocracy in many respects.
Yes,
I
of
think
course.
that people are looking for great opportunities, and they're willing to be convinced that the things you're doing are exciting.
Yeah.
And so, so make those connections, build those relationships, and get in front of lots of people.
Right.
And I think that you will ultimately prevail, even though it may take a few more of those relationships, a few more of those connections, a few more walls that you have to break through. But boy, that's what entrepreneurs do all day.